In just days, EA will flip a switch and Anthem will be gone. Not partially unavailable, not diminished, not reduced to a shadow of its former self, but completely inaccessible. When the servers go dark, BioWare's ambitious multiplayer experiment will no longer function in any meaningful way. There will be no offline option to fall back on, no way to explore Bastion solo, no preservation of its systems, movement, or world. One moment it exists, the next it doesn't, and that finality is what makes this shutdown feel heavier than most. This isn't just the end of support for a game, it's the erasure of one. Anthem launched carrying an enormous weight of expectation. This was BioWare, a studio known for defining RPG storytelling, stepping into the shared world shooter space with the backing of EA and the promise of something bold and new. From the very beginning, you could see the ambition in every frame. The world was lush, dangerous, and usually striking. The idea of piloting javelins, sleek, powerful exosuits that lets you fly freely across massive environments was instantly compelling. Even critics who were harsh on the game at launch often admitted one thing without hesitation. Flying in Anthem felt incredible. The sensation of lifting off, skimming over water, diving into combat, and chaining abilities midair remains one of the most satisfying movement systems ever put into a modern game. But Anthem was also a game released before it was ready to be what it wanted to be. Its systems felt unfinished, its endgame lacked depth, and its content cadence couldn't keep up with player expectations. What should have been a living, revolving world instead felt like a beautiful foundation without a completed structure on top of it. Loot issues, repetitive activities, and unclear design direction plagued the experience, and the goodwill that Anthem needed to survive in a live service space began to slip away almost immediately. Yet, even then, many players stayed not because the game was perfect, but because they believed it could become something special. BioWare and EA acknowledged these issues and for a time seemed committed to fixing them. The announcement of Anthem Next represented hope. It was framed as a full reimagining rather than a series of surface level patches, a chance to rebuild the game's core systems and finally deliver on the vision that had been teased before launch. For fans who had already seen flashes of brilliance in Anthem, this felt like a potential redemption story in the making. The idea that Anthem could rise from its troubled beginnings and reinvent itself was compelling, and many players were willing to wait. Then quietly that hope disappeared. Anthem Next was cancelled. Development stopped. The game entered maintenance mode, receiving minimal attention while the player base slowly dwindled. There was no dramatic send off, no final expansion, no moment of closure. Instead, Anthem simply lingered in an uncertain state, existing, but clearly living on borrowed time. Now, with only days remaining before the servers are shut down entirely, that uncertainty had been replaced by inevitability. What makes this shutdown particularly painful is the knowledge that once it happens, Anthem cannot be revisited. This isn't a single player game that can be replayed years later to reassess the strengths and flaws. It isn't a flawed classic that can be patched by a community or preserved through emulation. When EA turns off the servers, Anthem becomes unplayable even for those who legally purchased it. Physical copies become meaningless, digital license become empty entries in a library, the game's existence is reduced to memory, footage, and discussion. In these final days, there are still players logging in, not chasing progression or grinding loot, but simply experiencing the world one last time. Flying across Bastion, listening to the soundtrack, watching storms roll in, and soaking in the atmosphere that Anthem did so well, there's something quietly emotional about that, about knowing that every mission, every flight, and every moment in the world could be your last. It turns ordinary gameplay into something reflective, even bittersweet. Anthem also serves as a stark reminder of a larger issue facing modern games. As online titles rely entirely on online infrastructure, their lifespan is no longer determined by interest or passion, but by profitability and corporate decision making. When a publisher decides a game is no longer worth supporting, it can be wiped away completely. Anthem won't be the last game this happens to, but it stands as one of the clearest examples of how fragile digital experiences have become. Games are art, technology, and cultural artifacts, yet many of them now only exist as long as servers remain online. Despite everything, Anthem will be remembered, not as a success story, but as a cautionary tale filled with unrealized potential. A game that dared to do something different, nailed the feel of movement and combat in ways few others have, but never received the time, resources, or clarity it needed to truly thrive. In just days, Anthem will be gone, and what remains will be conversations like this, players' memories, and the lingering question of what could have been if things had gone differently. If you enjoyed this video and found it meaningful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want to support the channel further, check out my Patreon, where the latest exclusive video takes a deep dive into 10 underrated classics you should replay, games that deserve far more attention than they ever received. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and as always, game on.